Welcome to the Produce on Purpose podcast, where we experience life being the real you. I'm your host, Randy Atkins, and I have a wonderful guest today. Our guest, Dr. Elizabeth Pritchard, is a distinguished international keynote speaker, researcher, and leadership coach from New Zealand, currently based in Melbourne, Australia. She's a trailblazer in cultivating authentic leadership among women executives and leaders. As co-founder of the director of Women Authentic Leadership Training Institute, or the WALT Institute, Elizabeth's 3-decade career spans neuroscience, leadership, and research. Her having triumphed over childhood adversity, Elizabeth serves as an inspiration for women to discover their influential voice and lead themselves and others towards success. Welcome, Elizabeth, to our show. And how are you today?
Thank you so much, Randy. That's fantastic. I'm fantastic today. Rearing to go. I'm in the morning, you're in the evening. We're good to go.
Yes, completely different sides of the earth. It's about to get evening here, and you're in the morning. So it is definitely wonderful to have you with us. I'm going to start off by having you share with our audience a little bit about your journey and the important pieces that you want to share to kind of give everybody a background so that as we begin to discuss this great information that you have for leadership and how we are to live and how we're to move, how that works out. So tell us a little bit about your journey and who you are.
Okay. So I will start when I was younger. I'm the youngest of 9. My parents love children, so they just kept having them. And being the youngest of 9, I always found it really tough to be heard and found that I didn't have a voice. Yeah, I had this thing within inside me that it was like, I know that found the word later. It was, I have something to give to the world. I'm destined for something, but I had no idea at that time. And so for many decades through my teens and my early 20s and even 30s, I was sort of struggling with this whole thing of who am I and what is my voice and what is my special gifts, because I didn't feel like I had any, because, the youngest of 9, it was like everybody's done everything else by now. and so this was sort of the the foundation of who I was growing up. And it really influenced my life to now and to date. Also, I've been through some childhood adversity and other sort of reasonably sort of big events throughout my life, and becoming a leader and becoming an authentic leader, coach and trainer. These things often, I think, trip us up along the way, and we go, oh yes, and we keep going back to them. And so in the last decade or so, I've learned how to let those go, how to accept them as part of my life, how to embrace them, how to disconnect from the emotion of them because that doesn't serve me, and step into my leadership capacity in how I can be the authentic leader that I am today. And so that is a little bit of a snapshot, sort of from not having a voice to finding my voice and finding who I be from the inside out.
That is a really compelling, because I think there are many that may be listening that could relate to that. At some point in our lives, we may feel like we are unable to be heard or unable to really express ourselves and share who we are or find out who we really are in the midst. So you had 9 siblings. Wow. And you were the youngest. So that must have been a very busy house with lots of distractions. I'm guessing that you guys really grew up with a lot going on in that home. So that's pretty amazing in and of itself, right? And I'm thinking like 9 and 2. Your parents, maybe they probably didn't have. They were definitely outnumbered, it sounds like. So so as you were going through, you talked about having that setback moment in your life. If you don't mind sharing a little bit about that and potentially how that helped on your journey, the lessons that you learned, because I think sometimes we have setbacks and we feel like those things are what define us. And sometimes it's
Mm.
not so much that it defines the bad in us, but sometimes it can actually be that stepping stone to something different. So, do you mind sharing a little bit about the setbacks that you've had and what you've learned from those?
Absolutely. So the one that sort of shaped me when I was a child was that when I was 8, I was actually sexually abused.
Mm.
And so within that moment and for the next nearly 2 decades, nearly 20 years, I held
Mm-hmm.
that inside
Mm.
because I didn't know what to do with it. And as a child, I didn't know how to make sense of it. And
Right.
so that influenced what I did and who I was. However, I sort of just shoved it in the back reaches of wherever, my soul or wherever.
Right.
And
Right.
I sort of left it there and went, people don't want to talk about it, so I won't talk about it. I shared it once when I was 14 with someone. They didn't know what to do with it, so I shoved it back down there again.
Mm.
And so the learnings from that have been amazingly huge and beautiful. I see it not as something that keeps pulling me back. I don't see it as trauma.
Mm-hmm.
I have learned to reframe the way I approach it. I've learned to release and validate the feelings that I had. I have
Right.
learned to recognize that I had no blame, no shame in that incident at all. It was an adult and I was a
Right. Right.
child. And so I have come through those things recognizing that sometimes things, bad things happen to anybody. And it's like I can give a meaning to that incident as bad and hard and traumatic and terrible and the worst thing that happened and it ruined my life. I can give that meaning to it,
Right.
or I can choose a meaning where it's like, that happened to me. It should never have happened. That person was 106,000% at fault. They were
Mm-hmm.
there to protect me. They did not. And from that, I can only control me. And so, what is my response? And like Michael Singer talks about in his books, Untethered Soul, it's like I can cling on to that pain. I can cling on to that suffering. I can cling on to the words, the labels of victim. I choose not to because
Mm.
I did that for nearly 4 decades and it wasn't
Right.
serving me. It
Yeah.
wasn't helping me. I ended up with a period of time where I was absolute hit burnout and I could not function for over 3 months. I couldn't even get out of bed or shower myself or anything. I was completely broken. And this was all part of my learnings of
Right.
if I cling on to all these things that have happened in my life, if I cling on to the pain, all I'm doing is causing myself suffering.
Right.
And so I became on a journey where I learned in the last 15 years or so of how to let go. And I never knew how to let go. I
Mm-hmm.
remember I was having a massage once at a mind, body, soul um, extravaganza type thing where you go and try all these sort of testers and things and talk to people. And I remember I was having a reflexology. And this was the first time I had said this to somebody. I said to them, because they were sort of quite spiritual and a bit woo woo, so to speak.
Yeah.
And I remember saying to him, I said, can I ask you something? He goes, yeah, sure. While he's doing my reflexive points, I says, how do you let something go? And I was totally genuine because I didn't know. And I'd spent
Mm-hmm.
4 decades of not knowing how to let it go. And so that's one of the strengths and the power, I think, that anybody, not just women, anybody that we coach and train can begin to recognize and begin to practice because it's just a habit, it's just a pattern,
Right.
and we can practice letting it go. As simple as doing some imagery and holding on to something and then opening our hands, we're letting it go.
Right.
And so I've been learning and growing on how to let these things go. And this can be anything from a bit of a terse conversation with someone, or a courageous conversation where somebody got a bit upset about something, or whatever it could be. I've learned to recognize it, validate my feelings because they're real, they're true, they're honest, and
Right.
then I let go of the suffering.
I that is a very compelling story, and the point of getting to a place of letting go. I often also equate that with forgiveness, of releasing, because we can have, whether it's traumas, patterns, different things that we have. You brought up Michael Singer. There are others that talk about that, and even in the spiritual world, that we hear that by letting go, it provides us a space where we can then become authentically who we really are. And I know that you talk about this in what you do, of getting to that authenticity in leadership and in roles that we do. And so, how does letting go lead to us being in a space as leaders to where we can be authentic? And as we're being that authentic person, we're just being truly who we are. We're not putting on anything else, but we have let go and started moving in that direction.
Mm. There's a fantastic question, because that's what people say. They go, but I'm being authentic, I'm being gruff, and I'm wearing outrageous clothes and whatever and whatever, and people are not just responding to me. So it's not that type of authentic. it's 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 knowing who you be on the inside, and this is what we talk a lot about. It's who are you on the inside,
Right.
and so it's recognizing your strengths, your innate strengths, not what you do really well, but it's those
Hmm.
strengths on the inside. It's recognizing that you are able to dial up and dial down those strengths. Because sometimes I can be extremely humorous, other times I'm a little bit humorous. So I'm not being a different person, I'm dialing things up and down. I have a doctorate, so sometimes I can be very, what people would call, geeky, and go, oh my gosh, that's so exciting. I love spreadsheets and give me the data. And other times it's like I can dial that down and I can have a conversation about anything, anywhere, anytime with anybody and be totally present.
Right.
And so I think it's learning those things to dial up and dial down, and recognizing that when you get to that state of authenticity, when you get to that state of knowing that you're absolutely enough on the inside, then you realize you don't have to be anything for anybody else. You don't have to fit in to a box that somebody expects. You don't have to seek approval, because you're giving it to yourself on the inside. And that's not arrogance or ego, it's truth. The truth is, I'm enough. And some people like that, some people don't, and that's okay.
That's interesting because you said that when we find out our worth and that we are enough, that it really doesn't matter about all of the external forces and other things that sometimes may have defined us.
Mm.
It sounds like we sometimes, all of us, may fall into it. It may be social norms or unspoken rules, or different things that kind of have gotten us to a place where we may have missed out on who we really are and what we're really about. Do you have any tips or techniques to begin to distinguish that place in us that is really us and not coming from maybe something we saw on television? Sometimes it's just television, or maybe something we saw someone else doing, but it's truly who we are. What's a tip maybe that we could utilize to get to a place of finding out what we really like and what we're worth in who
Yeah.
we are?
Well, three different questions. Let's do a tip on finding out what we really like. We'll do that one first.
Yes. Yes.
So over this last sort of 15 or so years, it's like I was learning what my own inner wisdom was, because I didn't know. Because as I said, being youngest of nine, it shaped me. It's not right or wrong, good or bad. It is what it is, and it shaped me. And all of my experiences along the way shaped me. And within that, I was always looking for external approval. I was always do, do, do. That was the reason why I hit absolute burnout, because I thought I had to be the best, amazing mother, the best worker. I was doing my master's at the time. I was working in the church at the time. I was doing this and looking after family members and spreading everything out and doing. And I had no idea of what I needed. I had no idea of who I was. And unconsciously, and they're just unconscious patterns, as you mentioned before, Andy, they're just unconscious patterns that have created. And we don't need to look at them with any judgment. We don't need to look at them with any shame. We don't need to blame anybody for creating them. It just is what it is.
Right.
And within that, there's some release of letting go. And then recognizing what my inner wisdom is telling me is a huge part of being an authentic leader. And one of the tricks I've learned, and very happy to share with you and listeners, is to recognize that immediate voice. And you can practice this by things like, do I want tea or coffee? Get the first answer, go with it. That's what your body needs. It might say neither, go drink water. It might, whatever. It's like you can practice this. And when we do our coaching and training sessions and our courses, skills courses and things, we get people to do home play and homework from one session to the next. And one of them is walk down the road. When you get to a corner, ask your intuition, do I go left or right or straight? Find the first answer, go there. Have a look, be present, see what's around. Get to the next corner, do I go left, right or straight? Follow that. When people say, what do you want for dinner? Just go, trust yourself. If you have difficulty making decisions, it's just a label, it's just a pattern. Don't worry, you can change this.
Yeah.
And you can practice. It's like, okay, I'm going to practice. Here's a menu, and there's 7 things on there. And you can read the things, and it's like, oh, there's 5 things that I really love. Oh my gosh, but I can't make a decision. Recognize that. It's just a pattern. And then go, okay, often a little breath in, sometimes with your eyes shut can help. And it can just be what does my body want now? Oh, it wants chicken. Okay, we're having the chicken dish. Or, having the vegetarian risotto, whatever. It's like you practice, you train that muscle of recognizing your intuition, and that helps you to be aware of yourself first, because authentic leadership is all about self first. Yes?
Right.
Not selfish, self first, and being self-full. So you're full of enoughness. You're full of recognizing your own power and strength. You're full of being internally driven. You're full of your own validation, so you don't have to look externally for anything else from anybody else.
I like that. And so you're saying that by, like, we exercise our muscles. I go to the gym at least twice a week. I try to lift weights. I have to exercise them for them to continue to be strong. If we exercise that muscle of listening to our intuition and our body, then we will be more aware of making those choices and those decisions that align with that. And it gets us to that place of being authentically who we really are without overthinking. I think it's hard when you've been in a pattern and you've been typically overthinking things along the way. So something comes to you as a leader and you're trying to think of all of the different facets of how something can happen. And it's like, wait a minute, let me listen to the intuition. And many times that intuition is going to be right spot on if you're listening to it consistently, building that muscle through work that you've started to do. I like that, conditioning yourself to get there and move in that space. So you also talk about something called being resilient and having a resilient mindset as we are moving forward and going through. How do we begin to now you've and let go, you've gotten to a space where you are listening to your authentic self. How do you become more resilient in your mindset and in having a positive mindset in what you're doing?
So the way that we talk about resilience is a little bit different to what many people talk about it, because people talk about bouncing back from something. Now, I don't want to bounce back to the same shitty place. I don't want to bounce back to the same feelings of adversity. I don't want to bounce back to the same feelings of upsetness or trauma or difficulty or anything like that. I want to bounce forward. I want to go
Hmm.
forward. And so the techniques and things that we work through and train people in is to be able to do that, is to be able to recognize as it is right here, right now. So that's the beginning part. Validate your feelings, validate your response, because if we pretend and go, this is the biggest, toughest thing ever that I've ever come across, but I'm going to say it's good for me and where's the silver lining and la la la. If we're doing that, we're pretending. And positive thoughts on their own do not matter because they stay in our conscious brain. So they stay in our critical mind, they stay in our logical mind, they never go down into the body. And we know that when we experience things, when we feel things, that's when things are true.
Yes.
That's when things matter. That's when life changes. That's when our transformation occurs. When they
Right.
go down and we feel them and it's like, oh my gosh, I am confident. I am strong. I can do this. I'm an amazing, authentic leader. And we believe it inside. Doesn't matter what other
Yes.
people think. We believe
Right.
it ourselves. And so recognizing those things are all part of resilience. Stacking up your goodies. We say stack your goodies. It was like, when is the time I've come through adversity before? Oh, that time that happened. And I thought I had a job and I was all ready. This is one of my experiences. I was all ready to move countries for the job. And then 2 weeks before I had sold things off. I had left my current job. I had tickets purchased. I had things on storage. I was 2 weeks out moving countries for a job. And then they pulled the contract. They negated on their
Wow.
contract. And it was like, oh, it was like, excuse me, I have no job. I have no home. I have
Yeah.
hardly any belongings because I'd sold lots of things or given them away. And it was like, and now I have none of that, no security. And so I had come through that. So when the next time that I came to a what seemed like a massive big obstacle, I
Hmm.
went, hang on a minute, I came through that. And I came through the time when I had 3 people I loved die within 10 months of each other. And I came through a time when this happened. And I came through another time when that happened. And we stack our goodies. And again, it's like building your muscles in the gym. It's like last time I did 12 kgs. This time I'm doing 13 kgs on my press up bar, or 20 kgs, whatever it is. It's like stack your goodies and recognize the truth about those as well. And then within that, you then begin to shift your focus. So whatever you focus on expands. We know from Deepak
Right.
Chopra and Joe Dispenza and many, many others and neuroscientists as well. It's like where our focus goes, it activates our RAS, or our reticular activating system. And so once that's activated, we're going, oh, it's like if you're going to buy a new car and you sort of think, okay, let's look at all the, I don't know, I don't want to do an advert, this type of car, whatever car that was. It's different to
Yes.
your current car. So, and so it was, I don't want to advertise for any particular brand. And so it's like, you never noticed how many of that particular brand was around. And it was like, oh my gosh, there's another one. Oh, there's another one. Oh, there's another one. Because where your focus goes, your energy flows, and your body and your brain is attuned to that. And
Right.
so if your body and brain is attuned to trauma and tough stuff and hard stuff and difficult people, guess what? That's what you're going to keep experiencing.
Yes.
So one of the things of being able to become more resilient and bounce forward is, again, to train yourself to go, oh, I'm going down the garden path again. I'm thinking of all the negative things. Okay, I'm going to shift a little tiny tweak. What is one thing that is good about this situation?
Hmm.
And I had a moment like this in 2016 with my partner. when she was diagnosed with cancer 6 months after we were married. And it was like, oh my gosh, this was huge, this was big, this was enormous. And then every single day it was like, what is one good thing about this?
Right.
We get to spend more time together. What is one good thing about this? We get to explore different foods that we can eat or not eat. What is one good thing about this? We get to spread joy to the people in the waiting room while we're waiting for her treatment. What is one good thing about this? And we just went little tiny tweak by little tiny tweak. And within that, it wasn't that fakeness or falseness or pretense of like, oh, it's an adventure, it's a silver lining. No, it was shit. Let's call it what it is. It was absolutely huge. We didn't know if she would be alive. She's alive and healthy and amazing 8 years later. And within that, it's like, you don't know what the outcome is, but in this moment, I get to choose. I get to choose where I'm focusing. And that's the power of resilience. That's the power of building your mental toughness. It's the power of building your grit to be able to bounce forward again and again and again. Doesn't mean that things don't knock you and give you a little bit of a wobble, but you have the tools in your toolkit to bounce forward again and again and again and again. And it happens quicker and quicker the more you practice.
I love that you said stack your goodies, stack the goodies.
Yep.
And so I'm going to be stacking goodies every day because that makes so much sense that when we stack those good portions, and then you gave us a key there when you guys were going through that difficult time of just saying what can I see that's good. It's more than positive thinking, because that's the one thing that I think is difficult for people to get over. It's like I can, of course, write down some things and say them and even try to say them with feeling, but I think it's a lot easier to look for, is there just one good thing that I can see, and continue to stack that consistently. That's just our practice of saying every situation has multiple things going on with them all the time, no matter what. And so we can build that resilience by stacking our goodies, asking those questions, and practicing that on a consistent basis. I love that. And so I'm going to utilize that to be more resilient in what I do. So what do you have for the aspiring leaders that are out there that want to move forward, but they have some unique obstacles in their path? What would you have to share with them as they're starting this journey?
One of the things that I've found very strongly is that there's always someone who's been through that thing that you're coming up against. Yes, we think we are unique, and we are. However, there's always somebody out there who's been through something similar. It's never the same, but it's similar. It might be a boss who does this or doesn't do that. It might be a colleague who is not doing this or doing too much of that. It might be yourself who's feeling like this or feeling like that. And within those things, yes, the context can be quite different. You might be in a totally different organization than another person who's been through it, or a totally different country. That what I've learned throughout our coaching and training in the last 2 decades or so is that those things don't matter. What matters is who I am on the inside, and recognizing my strengths, recognizing and understanding me, recognizing and understanding my patterns, and then the ripple effect is huge. I mean, we coach and train people in every 30-minute sessions. Every 30-minute session, you get a result. You get something to put in place, and you change. People change. When you go all out and you're absolutely into it, and you come with that openness and learning and growth attitude, it's like you will tweak and change, and you will then be able to look back over a month or 2 months and go, wow, that's amazing. That person now is actually asking for help when they don't know what they're doing, instead of blundering through pretending they know what to do and making mistakes, and everybody else has to clean up the mess. Talking about the person in the team, of course, not the person we're working with. and recognizing those things and going, oh, I used to be afraid of this, and now I realize it's just a little tiny thing because I know all the things around it. Like, we work with directors of medical companies and other organizations and things, and they're incredible people and women who have oodles of experience, oodles of kudos, oodles of abilities, and they still have this little niggle that it's like, I remember working with one person and she was like, she was a professor, she was a head of a centre, international collaborator on research, all sorts of things. And she goes, I hate standing on stage and speaking. I was like, is that part of your job? Yep. Okay, we need to sort that then. She could do it all over the place. She was incredible. She was published. She was an author. She was doing all this stuff, and yet she had this little deep dark secret that she called it. And that was like every time she was ready to step on stage, she was just absolutely so terrified of it and did not do it well. In her words, didn't do it well. And so we worked on things and recognized what she could bring over. So again, she stacked her goodies. It was like, have you done it here? Have you done it there? Oh yeah, I can MC weddings, and I love doing that, and I love the people that I do it really well. Well, what can you bring from that context into this context? Have you presented this research before? She goes, oh, yes, I've been doing this for 35 years. I've presented it lots of times, internationally, all over the place. And I was like, okay, so bring that to the stage. And so it's bringing these things to the stage and recognizing who you are being. Now, she can't do that on her own. And the reason I have a coach is because I get faster, quicker, much easier results, boom, 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 because they can see from the outside in, and I'm sort of stuck in my patterns. And so they call me on my patterns. Linda's amazing. She calls me on my patterns in a gentle, non-judgment, awesome, amazing way. She's always in my side. She is always 100% solely for me. Doesn't matter what I say or not do. She's non-judgmental. She's on my side. And I think that's really important for authentic leaders also, to have that person that's on your side. It doesn't usually work within the organization. People go, oh yeah, I have my line manager. No, because there's powered indifference. When you have a coach or somebody like that, there's no power indifference. That person is solely there for you, to help you keep progressing, growing, knocking results off, and being the best version of you. And so that was a very long answer for
No, that's what we're here for, and I love where you went with this, because I've always heard, we all call ourselves professionals, and we look at the athletic world. I love sports, and you look at the sports, and in order for them to be professionals, they have coaches, and they're practicing consistently, and they're doing these things. But we call ourselves professionals, but we don't have coaches, or we're not practicing the disciplines, or we felt like we've learned a particular item and, we made it to a particular area. But it does make sense that we should have coaches. We should have that type of support, that we're practicing on that consistent basis, to no longer be just an amateur, but we are now professionals in everything that we do. And so I think it's great for those who are aspiring to be leaders to understand what that looks like, how it is to be authentic, what it means to kind of move forward, and being that professional, having that person. And I like how you called out the power in difference, because sometimes we could be choosing and saying, I have support here, but if that's the person that can hire or fire you, maybe that's not quite the person to be giving you everything that you need. There's great, you can have great relationships that way, but you can have something that is just yours if you have a coach or someone that can help you along the way. I love that. That is actually really, really good. So as you've been going through all of these years, what particular skills or attributes do you find that leaders and make them exceptional? What are those exceptional skills, abilities, and traits that a leader should have?
So for me, it comes back to that authentic leadership and these 4 components of authentic leadership. And when people have growing or high levels of these, it makes them exceptional leaders because they find a way. So one of those things is, the first thing is self-awareness. It's awareness of self, okay? Suck eggs here, but it's awareness of self. People often go, oh, yes, I'm really good at this. I've got high emotional quotient or emotional intelligence, blah, 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 blah. And yet when adversity comes up or somebody disagrees with them, or we may be a little bit ill or a little bit under the weather, then that self-awareness goes out the window and they become rampant or short or grumpy or take it out on their workmates or whatever it is. And so recognizing self-awareness is the first one. Self-regulation, as I mentioned before, that's that ability to dial up and dial down. You're not a different person on the sports team and in your community organization, at the workplace, at the international conference, at the buyers meeting down the road, at your home. You're not a different person. You're the same person on the inside when you're being authentic, and you dial up and dial down those things because you know that here I can bring more of this because it's really cool and it's really great and exciting and inspiring. And here I'll just dial this down just a little bit and then match where other people are at and then move it up. And so that's awareness as well, because you have to match and mirror people to be able to connect. And if you're bouncing off the walls and they're a little bit ho-hum, you're not going to match. They're going to go, they're a twat, they're an idiot. It was like, that person is just crazy. We're not going to work with them. So you have to match them and be able to have that regulation to then help lift them up a little bit more. And so those are 2 things. And then there's psychological capital. So psychological capital is hope, efficacy, resilience, and optimism. Now, these are not the airy-fairy little, I hope it's going to go okay. That's not a strategy. Hope is not a strategy. But
Right.
knowing inside, again, it comes back in, knowing that it's going to work out somehow in the future, knowing that right here, right now, it just is, and it's okay, and we are going to get through this, and we're going to find a way. All of those things are about your ability to move forward and keep becoming and being an exceptional leader. And then there's agency. And you've said this many times as well, Randy, today. It's about that being consistent. Agency is about taking action whether you want to or not. I've been training my agency and mental toughness in the last 8-9 months or so with ice baths. So I get up and I have an ice bath in the morning.
Wow.
And and I'm doing it not because I like ice baths, or maybe because I'm a bit crazy. Yeah, maybe that's fun. I'm doing it. I've started to do it, and I do it, and I love it, and it's part of my life now, part of my morning routine. It was like because I wanted to be more mentally tough. I wanted to say, when I go, even when it's uncomfortable, even when it's -4 degrees Celsius outside, even when it's blowing a gale, even when it's nighttime, even when it's pouring with rain, I'm in that bath because I've decided, I've committed, and I've resolved that this is going to happen. Good words from Tony Robbins as well.
That's amazing because I don't know about the ice bath, but being consistent, providing those, doing that over and over again, I'm guessing the body does get, even in that, the body gets more resilient out of doing that. I've really just enjoyed this conversation. We're coming to an end of what we're talking about, and I think those attributes are really spot on for us to be exceptional leaders. I thank you for giving us that model and sharing this with us today. Out of all that you have learned and out of your journey, can you leave us with 2 or 3 tips that you would love for the audience to be able to know and have that they could take away and begin to implement today?
Absolutely. One of the first things that jumps into my mind, I don't usually say stop doing something, but this is one of those moments, is to stop doing. So the first thing is to stop labeling yourself. Stop saying, I'm doing this on purpose, stop it. Stop saying, I'm a victim. I can't do this. I've never been able to. I always get it wrong. I'm useless at this. Stop labeling yourselves. That's the first thing, because it's just a pattern. And you're focusing on that, your amygdala, your little brain just goes, oh, okay, well, I'll keep finding the evidence for you. So stop labeling yourself. First thing. Second thing, find that space, find that way, find that person, that thing, that experience that assists you to believe that you are enough. Because you are.
Yes.
Every single person on the planet, you're like 1 in 400 trillion chance of becoming you. Of that egg and that sperm coming together and creating you. You are enough just by being alive. You don't have to do anything. And the third thing, let go. Let go of the stuff. Let go of the baggage. Let go of the events. Push stop on the video that you keep playing again and again and again and again of those things that happened in the past. Let it go. Be here, be now, and look forward.
Thank you so much, Elizabeth. Where can my audience and everyone find you to connect with you, to know what you're all about and what you're doing?
Fantastic. Thank you, Randy. So it's Walt Institute, as Randy said at the beginning, WALT Institute, one word, .com is our website, Insta, Facebook, LinkedIn, and you can also email me on elizabeth@waltinstitute.com if you want to message me.
Thank you so much for participating and being such a great guest and giving us such tidbits of information about being these exceptional leaders, being resilient, and for sharing your story. Elizabeth has been fantastic. And my encouragement to everyone in the audience is check her out, check out all of those items that she has shared with what she's doing, because we all can be those authentic leaders, be exceptional in what we do, and we can apply that to our lives so that we can all, in the end, produce on purpose.